Those sneak up on you.
Yeah, especially when they land on the first.
Yeah.
Okay, so are we ready? Because I'm gonna press play.
Sure.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to call this meeting of the Town of Alton Planning Board Zoning Amendment Committee to order at 6:03 p.m. And are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes.
All right, no changes to the agenda. Want a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
I will move that the committee meeting agenda is approved.
All right, seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All right, election of officers. Can we do that?
You
Three of
could,
us?
you have a quorum.
All right, so I'm going to nominate Scott for chairman since he's not here. He can't defend himself.
Second that.
There we go. Anybody else? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
We need a vice chair.
So we have chair. Scott, and I will volunteer for vice chair. If you guys want, you're all right with that?
Fine by me.
Aye.
Okay.
No quibble.
All those in favor, aye. Okay. Who else do we need on this?
Just on the committees, normally just chair and vice
Okay.
chair. That's fine.
All right. Okay, well, let's move right on.
And that was you that motioned?
Yes, I guess I motioned myself. Am I allowed to do that?
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, just so that we have it official. Okay.
All right. Okay, so on the agenda under new business, update from the chair of the Alternative Housing Committee. Starting with the memo dated September 12th. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to see that and read that. But I think, no, do you want to offer your reasoning again,
will
just for the
Offer
record?
that up again. Yep. So the Alternative Housing Committee has officially been disbanded. They have done their job as far as working with the planning consultant, Tara Bamford, in order to create the short-term rental ordinance. And now it's over here at the ZAC committee. There are a few other things that we had started working on, which was the flexible zoning. That wasn't going to be quite done. And it's pretty involved. So we didn't want to hurry up and shove it on the ballot for March. So that is actually going to go to the ZAC committee next year, along with the cottage colonies. So we're just going to have her working directly with ZAC instead of working through the Alternative Housing Committee. It just made sense, and I'm low on staff right now, so.
Okay. So, yeah, all in all, I think the decision made a lot of sense. It was very prudent. The next item was the invoice breakdown from planning and zoning consultant. And so we have all of that to review and.
Yep. So
Again,
next year, when ZAC starts up again, we at least, we still have some money left over to still work with Tara. So, and that'll be good for about, I think, 4 years come next year. So
Okay,
good for a while.
good. All right. All right, review first draft of the 2023 proposed zoning amendments dated September 22nd, 2022.
So if I can just give you just a brief synopsis of number one.
Yes.
Amendment number one. So this language, all this language came from the write-up that Tyra did. And then I just reformatted it and put it into our amendment format. There are additions from when we met with her the first time, and they're highlighted in yellow. So those were Those were the
So
few.
since the last ZAC.
Yep, since the
right.
last, yeah, since we met
Okay.
last. So those were the additions that you guys had asked her to put in.
Yep.
So that's what the yellow highlight is. Then in the blue writing, those are just kind of some comments or sort of questions I had, or just things I just wanted to make sure that you guys were okay with.
Okay.
So if we want to just sort of go through that, pages 1 and 2, and then sort of halfway down, a little bit more than halfway down page 3, up until the rationale, if we want to like look at that first, because there's a bunch of stuff in there.
Yeah, so I think the addition, the non-transient,
That was my issue. So.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good. Yep.
that's good. I know I had to do some double taking on some of the amended definitions. I did have a question under the accessory building structure or use. That the red that was added, that includes the offering of 1 or 2 guest rooms in an owner occupied dwelling unit for the compensation of non-transient use. So I guess I'm struggling a little, because to me, the definition of an accessory building or structure, this also, I guess, gets into the use, and maybe I shouldn't be struggling so much with it. No, I take that back. I'm okay now that I've actually heard myself say it out loud.
Can that
Glad we
be a
could
second
assist.
residence?
Is that-
Can it be a second residence?
Not, and it can't be a second separate dwelling unit.
No, okay.
Right. It has to, well, if it's an accessory apartment, it has to be like in a garage over, or part, part of an accessory use.
Right.
So were there any other questions on the definitions?
I think I'm good.
So under general provisions, section 365, short-term rental, item number 1, Jessica, you had added a question about, does the term private road encompass both private and class 6 roads? And I suppose it does not. I mean, right, a class 6 road can be non-private.
Well, class 6 road is a town owned road.
Right.
It's just not maintained.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, so this is specific to a town or state maintained road or a private road. There's no provision in here to allow this off of a class 6 road, which we have as a classification in town. So that stemmed my question.
Oh,
I feel like that either missing or we're not allowing it.
Right.
Currently, we're not allowing that according to that language, in my opinion.
Yes, and so the question is do we want to allow it on a class 6? And my knee-jerk reaction is yes. I don't know why not. As long as it has not been the subject of that waiver for.
In order to build a home on a class 6 road, you have to have permission from the Board of Selectmen. So if someone comes to me, build a permit, build on a class 6, they've got to go, and part of that is they have a conversation with the selectmen about maintenance of that, or at least that portion of the road, or.
Right, right.
But
They
there's
come to planning and then select.
right, there is a formal process that's laid out in statute to do that.
Right.
You guys have seen some of those.
So, but very often these short-term rentals are the result of somebody who's already gotten all those approvals. They've already built their house, and now they're saying, hey, I'm going to cash in.
Yeah.
So would there be any risk to the short-term renters that are going there, not really knowing what they're getting into, that they perhaps could not get a rescue vehicle to them?
Right. That's the point of the waiver of liability that you have to sign and record when you build on a class 6 road, that yes, we understand, they understand that the town will make its
Right.
best effort to get there, but they may not be able to.
Right.
So-
Which
Yeah,
I feel
and
like
that's-
that's
so-
problematic, because if the homeowner is waiving like, yeah, I'm fine, I'll take responsibility if something happens. But now if they're starting to rent,
You're bringing in
now
others that aren't
you're
part of that
putting those
original.
people potentially at some type of risk.
Right, who
By
have not necessarily understand or have
Right.
agreed to a risk.
And unless it's written into some
So-
contract that they're aware that they might not get help.
So I think in a way you kind of, by saying on a private road or a class 6 road that has not been subject to the waiver, if they built on the class 6 road, that waiver is there.
Right? And sometimes private roads have waivers as well.
But not always.
Right.
the
Class
class
6
six
always,
always.
private sometimes.
So then
Yeah,
we should not include class 6 in this. But
I
do
guess
we,
there should be something about who the liability is on the owner of the property on the class 6 road. Is the
Might
issue
be.
just specifically around the liability for the town?
Well, that might be something we want to ask Steve Whitley about. Stephen
yeah, like
Whitley,
I was really
our
having a
the
problem
town
with
attorney,
that
yeah,
section.
if he's dealt with it, or if he thinks it might, exclude or include class 6 roads, but
Right.
in this case,
Because technically a class 6 road could be a town maintained road, which is, encapsulated in that first section. The first part of the
So a
sentence.
class 6 road can also be possibly town maintained.
no,
yeah, no, the town
Or-
doesn't
or
maintain
unmain-
class
so it's
6, right?
unmaintained.
Right.
unmaintained, yeah,
Sorry.
non-maintained
All right,
road.
take that back.
So,
I think maybe we ask. Because either way, if someone goes out there and gets hurt, they're going to sue the town no matter what. And
I
they're
was
going
gonna
to
say,
sue
I mean,
the
it's
property.
irrespective of whether it's a short-term rental or, it's
Yeah.
the owner on the
Yeah.
class 6 road, right? Unless they signed a waiver.
Well, if they're on the if they're built on if the owner is built on the class 6 road, that they've done that waiver of liability in order to get permission to get a building
I
permit.
thought I just heard that maybe there were some properties that didn't have waivers on class 6 roads.
No, on private roads.
Not, yeah,
private
private
road.
roads, yeah.
All right.
So yeah, I'll reach out to him on that. Sort
and
of ahead of time, instead of the normal, like, here's the whole thing and take a look at it,
I need it back in an hour.
Yeah.
Kind of piecemeal this one a bit.
so I guess my question would be though, that if the decision comes back that, yeah, you should not include class 6, then should we specifically state, but in no case?
Yeah, I think we should formally
Right.
exclude it.
Yeah,
Right, because then I feel
Have
like
that
if you don't
language in
mention
there,
it,
so
it's
there's no
almost
question.
like as if maybe someone overlooked it. If you're
Right, we
not-
want to
if you're
leave
not
out the
saying,
gray.
like, It's,
yeah,
yeah,
okay.
okay.
The next question that I had was on the next page, number 4. For dwellings not served by a public water supply, documentation must be provided prior to the issuance of a permit and annually thereafter of a test for total coliform. Is that the only thing we're going to require them to test for?
Yeah, the standard coliform and E. coli would be a standard, basic standard test,
Right.
Yeah.
So do we want to say coliform and E. coli?
probably.
Okay.
There's no testing for organics or anything like that.
There's the next level up tests for manganese and, all the other, those types of things. This is just the basic,
Okay.
Kind of the minimum.
Microbial infection.
right?
Okay, and then I'm gonna hone back in on this accessory dwelling unit allowance. And you guys can totally disagree with my opinion, but for the record, I'm not happy with it. That's all.
With what one now?
Number 6.
So that's saying that when you've got a single family home and you have an accessory dwelling unit, only one of those may be utilized for short-term rental.
Right.
Um,
I'm just not a fan of utilizing the accessory dwelling unit for a rental, considering we're already having issues with not enough housing. And then we're working on a flexible zoning to allow for more housing. So it's kind of like we're getting rid of one and then we're working on another one.
well, we're not getting rid of it.
You know?
We're just adding an option, right?
True.
Granted, it's an appealing, profitable
Yep.
option.
Like I said, it's just my opinion. I mean, it's up to you guys, but I just,
Are you suggesting we shouldn't have it, or are you suggesting we should?
that is my suggestion, to not allow.
But that came out of the short-term housing committee, right? It
Yeah.
was a guideline or recommendation.
That came from the Alternative Housing Committee. That was my opinion at that committee as well.
Exactly.
It's gonna be my opinion at the planning board.
And
Trying to sway the.
When you went through it, did you have any problem? Because I struggled understanding the math of this, to tell you the truth, because it's somewhere, and again, I read this last time we were here, so bear with me a little bit, but
Okay,
last time I read this, well, the way I read accessory building is you can have more than one of them. Like someone a minute ago said it's a house plus one accessory building. It sounds like, from what I read last time, if you have a house, you can have 10 accessory units if you have enough space.
You can have an accessory structure,
yeah,
but you're only allowed one accessory dwelling unit.
Only one of them can be
Yeah,
used for
you
rental.
have your house and you're only allowed one accessory dwelling unit. You can't put 5 out there.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're limited.
Because somewhere else in here, it does kind of suggest that if you got 5 acres, you could put multiple units for rent on it.
Well, if that, I need to know what that is, because that's not what our intent is.
3 dwelling units per acre. Oh, that's not what I saw. All right, let's keep
okay,
going.
yeah,
but
you
it
must
may
be on
come
like a
up.
different section.
It may come up.
Okay.
All right. Withdraw any concern.
that's all right.
But thank you
that's
for
fine.
clarifying.
Save that thought. So, and I get what you're saying, that you would rather that if somebody's going to have an accessory dwelling unit, that they utilize it for more of a committed rental.
No, I thought you were saying you could use it, both of them for rentals.
No,
No?
but I would like to see the accessory dwelling unit as a long-term rental.
Oh,
Let's take this totally out of the equation.
Yeah, I don't think I necessarily agree with that, and I recognize the housing issue here, but I think that's where this next year's items that we've got to tackle. And I think, well, I don't know. I think when we get into that a little bit deeper, we're obviously going to have to come back to all of this stuff that we're talking about here to make sure that we don't conflict with it. But I also think that incentives are a good idea for people to utilize those for long-term rentals as opposed to short-term rentals. And that's something above our pay grade.
I'm gonna go back to my issue. I think if we're gonna limit it to one accessory rental unit per space or per property, we should state that. I guess I didn't see where it states that.
Well, I think it's already,
I was gonna say, it's in the code.
it's in the zoning ordinance itself.
Oh, it's in the ordinance itself.
Yeah, in the accessory dwelling
Yeah, the
unit
accessory dwelling
definition.
unit section of the zoning ordinance, it specifies that.
Thank you.
It may not hurt to have it in here, though. I guess this is a reminder.
Department of Redundancy Department.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because it's someone who's doing short-term rentals, not necessarily gonna go look at the accessory dwelling unit or zoning regs.
Again, it was last meeting, but to me, it was unclear when I read through it last time.
Yeah, and yeah, we could put in there, in accordance with section, whatever the
Yeah.
accessory dwelling unit section is, only one accessory dwelling unit's allowed per lot.
Just to be clear, yeah. So you don't wind up with 10 of them.
Okay, so are there any other comments on that, the article, the general provisions portion? We'll move on to the permitted uses, and let's talk about the rationale.
Yep, the rationale, I pulled from a lot of the stuff that Tara had provided us.
So the bunkhouse, the definition of the bunkhouse, the only thing we're proposing is shall not be utilized as a separate short-term rental property.
Right, yeah, this next section is sort of the other stuff that Tara found that didn't jive. So it's just sort of a cleanup.
Dwelling unit in the retirement community.
Yeah, so these, we didn't really get into the nitty gritty of talking about actually amending when we were talking about it previously. So these are sort of like, you guys should recommend or not recommend for me to put this in a regular format and add it so that amendment number 1 includes all of that.
So some of these, though, can just be housekeeping, right? Are we gonna have the attorney weigh in on?
See.
Well, yes and no. The advice that I got from Tara was that they really shouldn't be quote unquote housekeeping type amendments. They all should. I mean, they could be, it could be one housekeeping amendment. This is a housekeeping amendment and, sort of cleaning up these definitions. And it still goes on as a warrant article, but, it doesn't just get changed.
Okay, yeah, what I don't want to see is have it lumped in with short-term,
Yeah,
it's a
so,
result of the research for short-term rentals, and I don't want it lumped in with that because we know how the community responds when they're overwhelmed with too much information. It's just no.
right, I mean, they still go with the short-term rental language. Like if you look at bunkhouse, I mean, it's talking about shall not be utilized as a separate short-term rental property. So if that became a separate warrant article, that would make no sense if short-term rental didn't pass.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That's what, so they kind of, we're either going to address these within number 1 or we're not,
Right. Or
right?
you pull all the items that make the reference to short-term rental and we set them, if that warrant article for short-term rental passes, then you have this other warrant article to be voted on for adding this language or correcting this language, right? Can't they do that? Will they do that? I've seen that
I
before.
think so. I think we did something to that effect last year, not the planning board, but a different warrant article.
Why not just embody it in the one? I mean,
I'm just concerned too much information in one place. It just, you start bombarding with too much and you get pushback. It just, no matter what, people push
Right.
back and
So.
they're gonna push back no matter what, but
So I could put those in a separate warrant article and then within, so if you look on nope, somewhere else.
Wording on this one's really tough too, because a bunkhouse cannot be permitted if it doesn't have a bathroom. Or maybe you read it the other way around. On the
Bunkhouses are not allowed to have bathrooms.
Right. So the
Okay.
bunkhouse is not permitted. And it can't have a bathroom.
I just wondered if you take 9 and make that the overriding statement,
Yes.
simply.
I think that makes it a lot simpler.
I get what it's a double negative is what it is.
It's a double negative, and some of the other ones are too.
Yeah.
But just strike all the, what a bunkhouse should not have, and just put 9 as the statement.
I think that makes the most sense.
Say that again?
Just take 9 and make that as the, again, the overriding statement under the that it's not a short-term rental, and eliminate all the other language.
Well, all the other language exists already.
Exactly, that's my
So
point.
I don't think. That should say a bunkhouse is permitted,
That's right.
it should not say not permitted.
So there's two sections. We fixed this last year. The first section of bunkhouse regulations is the items that are permitted, and then the second section of the items that are not permitted. So this is like half of that section, because the first half didn't have anything to do with the second half.
Well, they still should, I hadn't really looked at this before, but I feel we need to change the wording of this somehow, because it doesn't make sense.
Yep.
The following items are not allowed in a bunkhouse or whatever, instead of saying it is not permitted as follows.
But that's already captured, right?
Well, this is right out of the ordinance. this
Yeah,
section.
that's my point.
Yeah.
Right.
So why do you need it at all then? You just put in statement 9 as the one that there are no bunkhouses that can be short-term rentals.
well, because you still have people that have bunkhouses that their kids are going to come stay in.
Yeah.
So
That's family, right?
that's family, but the point being is the regulation says it can't have a kitchen, it can't have a bathroom. It's to discourage it from evolving into a dwelling.
Right. Yeah, but my point is that's already in the codes.
Why don't you get rid of 9 and turn the first sentence to is instead of is not, and you're covered. Because it already says you can't lease it, rent it, or use it as a dwelling.
Right. Or we could just take 9 off altogether.
No, take 9, yeah, but you
And
still
we don't
need to
even,
change
you know.
is not to is.
Yeah.
I think John's right. It should read is instead of is not. For the grammar to be right.
Are you saying that this is kind of an excerpt of the entire,
Yes.
so a bunkhouse is not permitted as follows, there's other language, and then this language shows up?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we may be taking the whole thing out of context. I think that's what John just ran down to go get, by the way.
So let me run and make a copy of this page real quick.
Okay.
Since he
All
left.
right, we're going to take a brief 2-minute recess
And you guys can see.
as opposed to a
Sorry
long
for
2-minute
calling
recess.
this out, but this is the kind of thing we want to catch, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, this is what we do this for. So we need to try and catch these little idiosyncrasies and
It's the other one. There was one in here about the 5-acre thing that really caught my attention. Maybe 5 or more per acre or something.
There you go.
Thanks.
Yep. Principal building on lot.
So before last year, this was just one giant list and it said a bunkhouse is permitted. And then all of them, it was just one list.
Mhm.
So I separated them, but it still could, I can see your point, like it still kind of needs some massaging. It's better than it was.
So before you're saying it, that line that says a bunkhouse is not permitted was just never there.
Right, it went from like 5 and then when it starts with 1, that was 6,
6.
7, 8, 9, 10. It was just one list.
I think that actually works though, right? That's
It,
kind of how it should read. Bunkhouse permitted as follows, it cannot have the following.
no, I don't know why everyone
Not be
approved
used.
it last year.
So,
I don't know.
I don't know
yeah,
either.
I must have missed that meeting. Uh,
So
All in
now,
favor?
so now we're
I know I
talking
was
about
approved.
changing the entire thing, which wasn't on the list, but
Well,
that's fine. I mean,
so-
that's what we do.
So I think that considering that number 2 covers cannot be leased, rented, or used as a dwelling unit means that you do not need to have number 9.
I didn't think so either. And I mean, that was a suggestion from our consultant, but I didn't think it was needed.
Yeah, I don't think.
Or just put the language in there about.
Is that what you
can't
just
be
did? I
used
just
as-
did that, John.
Thanks.
I thought you were going down to get your whole book. Okay,
I should have brought.
Does it look like
Well, you
this?
guys got to the same
looked like the
page.
copy that I made.
I don't know, did you put it?
I just- I
You're on the
think
same
I-
page.
I didn't know that's what you were doing. I
Sorry.
thought you were getting your book.
Thank you. So the question, I guess what we just were discussing is do you even need that number 9 added there if you have number, where'd it go?
2.
Thank you, 2, cannot be leased, rented, or used as a dwelling unit. That pretty much covers it.
It does.
So,
Okay, then
Yep.
look at me. Go
so do
crossing
we
it
want to
off.
change though a bunkhouse?
Yeah.
Is permitted.
So the amendment though is going to be around short-term rentals, right?
Right, this is right.
So
Now
I
we're
just,
starting to talk about changing a bunkhouse section,
Yeah, I know.
which, like I said, I mean, that happens.
Do we want to put that on next year's list?
What's that?
The changing this,
reword
a
that one
bunkhouse
again?
is not permitted?
Yeah, it's basic. I mean. Yeah, we can change that.
Okay.
The intent of what we want and is don't want can still be taken out of it, can be gotten out of what we've got here.
Yeah, I think the point is made. It's
Yeah.
just, it's a grammatical thing and, well,
Because we've used cannot, shall not, those
Right.
which are. Sorry,
I'll just fix the whole thing for next year.
Just from, I'm just curious, if you have a bunkhouse where the walls are 9 feet tall, what's that called? If you have a bunkhouse and the walls are 9 feet tall, what's that called?
Was there a limit for 8
I was
feet?
going to say,
Well, look at item 4,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yep.
there was a limit of 8 feet.
Oh, okay.
No.
So a bunkhouse with a 9-foot wall is called a bigger bunkhouse?
Taller, just taller.
You'd get a variance. I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm just, it was just
You would have,
just a
if you
curiosity.
wanted, if you want over 9 feet, you'd have to have a variance, but
Oh,
I mean,
okay, I'm with you.
yeah.
All right, thank you.
So for 10 feet, you have to have a frost foundation.
You have to have a ladder if you're gonna paint it.
Okay, so, all right, so we're
But we digress.
crossing off, so we're gonna cross that off and I'll put that on for next year.
Okay.
All right. So do we want to add this, number 2, the dwelling unit? Now this is kind of fixing the, dwelling unit language.
Yeah, I think that still needs to be clarified. As well as the hotel and the motel, that they,
Yeah, because either way, this is adding clarification, even if the short-term rental doesn't go through, these are
Yeah, that's what
still,
I'm saying. These are like kind
yeah,
of
these still
to dwelling unit,
stand
not short-term
independent of
rental.
that.
Yep. So I mean, I could lump these in one warrant article and entitle to clarifying,
Transient use and sleep, yeah.
I could do that.
That would be the easiest.
So that those three will become a separate warrant article. What about the continuing care? That's section 331. Because that's also sort of
That-
lumped in with the, it's
Yeah, what-
clarifying the dwelling unit language.
I think we can get away with it, make that part of,
All right, so dwelling unit, crossing off dwelling unit for the continuing care retirement community, hotel, motel, and then section 331, all that will be in one warrant article.
I think that would,
Because that, it's all
it's all similar,
similar.
it's all similar and
Right.
pertinent to each other.
Yep.
so.
We can do that.
Gets us on to amendment 2.
So amendment 2, there were inconsistencies in the definition and in section 355 for the recreational campground or camping park, which would either allow a minimum of 2 or a minimum of 5. Is it considered a recreational campground if you only have 2, or do you have to have 5?
Is there any precedent in the past?
Well, we amend the, I think we did, we amended this in 2013, the section 355, and it didn't catch
Right.
that the definition didn't match.
And recreational campground, the definition was also amended the same year in 2013 and then again in 2017.
Really?
The definition?
The definition. Yep.
So by one of them, it says you pitch 3 tents, you're now a recreational campground or camping park, and the other one, you're not. How often do you run into this?
Not often.
There must have been something that triggered it back in 2013 then, right?
Yeah, I think it was a situation where a family had several, they put up tent platforms for their kids
Okay.
to come, and so it was a matter of at what level did we want to start considering it a full-blown campground
Camp,
or whatever.
Right. Which would lead one to believe it was for two campgrounds, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, I would think that would kind of be pushing towards the 2.
Yeah, that would be my supposition.
And under rationale, I would add the statement, corrects the inconsistency in the minimum number of campsites allowed is allowed in the definition and section per revisions in 2017 or amendments in 2017.
Yeah, that's what I was just trying to look and see what was that amendment in 2017. I was just trying to look that up right now. I don't know if that had to do with the number or what. I'm not sure. Haven't gotten that far yet.
Yeah, that's true. We're just making an assumption.
I don't remember.
It's only a decade ago.
Yeah,
That's true.
slip it.
So my past, that would be. Here we go. This goes on forever.
All right, so it wasn't one of the first 6 amendments proposed.
No.
She's scrolling through.
Getting there. Not, we can maybe just move on to the next one or something.
Okay, while you're hunting things down.
Yeah.
All right, so so the next one had to do with the decreasing the minimum lot size and setback requirements from any lot line and to correct the use of the term dwelling unit.
Okay, so this proposed amendment number 3 came from discussions when we were talking about the cabin cottage colonies and the fact that it's not very user friendly when you need a minimum of 10 acres in the Lakeshore residential zone and a 50-foot setback. So what I did to help assist the committee to make some pretty solid determinations on changing it or not is right after that rationale, I went through the table of uses and I pulled out every use that has to do with a special exception in the Lakeshore residential zone so that you would be educated on, if you change that criteria, what uses are allowed for a special exception that it would make a difference on. And way at the end of the document has the entire solar energy system ordinance.
Mhm.
I didn't want to plug it in the middle of here because it was a lot of pages.
So that's a continuation, then that whole would.
Yeah, way at the very end. Yep.
Okay.
So I just wanted you to, kind of be able to look at if you did change the minimum lot size and or the setbacks, you'd know what would be going in.
Right.
What's the 10 acres for? Lot size for what?
For these criteria,
Or for like a bed
for the
and
special
breakfast?
exception. Yep, for a special exception.
Okay.
And this is specifically, we're just talking about the Lakeshore residential zone.
Correct. Yep.
So. And what are, I mean, generally speaking, I know there's a couple of exceptions at larger lot pieces of land out there, but generally the lots are smaller in Lakeshore.
They don't even come close to this normally, right?
10 acres. Yeah, that's
Yeah, I mean,
huge.
certainly right along the lake, it's like, quarter acre, third of an acre,
Yeah, the
But-
10-acre parcels are
few.
few and far between.
Right. So,
So-
I mean, it sounds like they put this in, as a safeguard to the lake. I mean, that's a very restrictive
I was gonna say,
regulation.
basically, they didn't want to give any special exception.
That's kind of what that's telling me, right? I agree. To protect the lake, I guess, from, I don't know, these uses.
Well, then
What's the motivation to change it?
overdevelopment, yeah.
But I think to try and get more dwelling units, I think is
Yeah.
kind of where we're leaning with it, but. And
I mean, are you really going to have any chance of doing that with what already is in the language?
Yeah, I bet you could. Especially with the understanding that, in the immediate perimeter of the lake, you're not going to find a lot of 5-acre lots. I mean, they're,
Yeah.
Never mind 10.
yeah, never mind 10. I mean,
Yeah.
there's some of the private camps that are owned are pretty large, but
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, I think softening this, and I get this is a real conservationist approach, which is basically saying you can't do it.
Right.
But
But you kind of can do it if you come and try to get a variance approved or something, right?
well, you got to come and get a special exception
Exception.
and show that your lot is at least 10 acres, and then you can get granted that special exception.
Oh, you can only do the exception if your lot is 10 acres.
Right.
Right.
If you've got that, you can come to the special, if you meet these criteria.
Right.
But if you don't, then you need a variance and that.
You need a variance, right? So there's still a process to do.
And yeah, and that would be a hard sell.
Yeah.
So,
Right, but it
and the
still allows
50-foot
process.
setback from any lot line, is that
Yeah.
really in Lakeshore? We have 50-foot
Any of them.
setback from any?
We don't know in this particular, for this
Yeah.
particular use.
Right.
Oh,
For
okay, yeah,
these, like
specifying.
these uses right here,
I-
like
you
in
know.
that list.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's just for these uses.
Right, so when we come to the creation and discussions, when we talk about that cabin cottage colonies ordinance, how is that gonna fit into this restrictive regulation? I don't think it's gonna.
It's not. It's simply
Right, so
stated, right?
So all of our work to trying to help foster cabin and cottage colonies is gonna be for nothing if this somehow doesn't get
Yeah.
amended.
So what, I mean,
Do
what do
we, but if we're gonna do cabin colonies, if we're talking about doing cabin colonies this upcoming year, do we want to wait and include this with that?
And so yeah, this one kind of has a a 3-tier, this one section. So yes, that actually makes more sense to change A and B next year when we do the cabin cottage colony.
Yeah, then we can get a better feel because
Yep. And then,
Otherwise, it's pretty inconsistent.
it, yeah, I think we would have a better idea of acreage and a setback requirement once we have that sort of in play.
I think the better thing is to
Table it,
table
A and B.
at least
So
those
A-
two
yeah,
changes.
A
Yeah,
and
those two
B.
changes until.
Yep. And then, so C, that wording that's in red actually came from the section on page 4 that I was going to put into a separate warrant article, like the dwelling unit, hotel, motel. That actually came from that section, and I pulled it out of that section because we were working on something different, which was the acreage and the setbacks.
Mhm.
It's almost like this ordinance is kind of in here twice. It's in here for like sort of two different things.
Jessica, the couple of more pages down, like section 433, is that an item addressing what you're talking about already, that somebody's already addressed? That you can have a dwelling on every acre or half acre if it's municipal water?
That
It's separate.
yeah, that's different.
That's a different, okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Just want to wait to do this at the time, the whole thing, or you want to try to add in this language? Or, in a bed and breakfast lodging, a guest house was, setting those density requirements. Or do we want to just add that to waiting to deal with cabin colonies next?
I think it's worthwhile to try and get this in.
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
this C, I think it's worthwhile to try
Alright,
and get that
So
clarity
we're
in
gonna
there.
do A and B next year
Yeah,
with our cabin cottage colonies. And then C, I'm gonna actually take this and put it in with this other section here. That I was gonna do because that's where it came from originally, and I pulled it out.
From definitions, or from the. this
Yeah, from that
definitions of
article,
333.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That it came from that area. Because it had to do with the changes we did with the short-term rental dwelling unit language.
okay.
So then, in essence,
So I'm gonna move that over.
Amendment 3 will go away.
Yes, Amendment 3 will get sucked into a new separate warrant article. So
Okay.
I'll name that new separate warrant article number 3,
Okay.
more or less.
So we're on to number 4.
So we are, yeah, so
Okay, so all set. We're moving on to number 4.
yeah. Yeah, our hands are tied on number 4, aren't
I was
they?
gonna say, is there any real discussion on that?
No, there isn't. It's
There
it's
isn't.
another one of these that we got
Yep.
ramrodded. So we're just we want to make sure the ordinance reflects what the statute
Right.
says.
So I just want to make sure that you guys are okay with sort of so right under planning board proposed amendment number 4, that last sentence. This amendment, if voted down by ballot vote, will still go into effect due
Yes,
to the change
okay.
in state law.
I was gonna ask the question, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that good language?
I don't see why not.
I mean,
Because
Basic.
then they come back and say, well, we voted it down. Well, yeah, but you don't.
Yeah,
State.
so that's why I
preempts.
want to like,
You didn't vote
Make
down
sure
the state
they're-
law.
Yeah, we've
make
been
sure they're aware of
preempted. We're
that.
just trying to make sure we're.
Yeah.
Lined up with the state.
We can't have another caveat in there that says, and should the state reverse this ridiculous decision that we will
Share your
reverse
opinion.
ours? No?
But why do
All
we
right.
vote, why would we vote on it if there's no? Why do you even? bring
Because
the
it's a
vote?
substantial
Yeah,
change to the,
right.
it's a substantial change to the ordinance. So to make a substantial change to the ordinance, and I see your point and I agree
Mhm.
that we're already forced into this. Why are we?
So you're doing the vote just to make awareness, to-
Yeah, just to bring
Yeah.
public awareness to
Right.
it.
even though they make it the impression that they actually have an opportunity to change it.
Yeah,
Because that's kind of what you're saying, right?
Yeah,
But they
yeah.
don't.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's all you do, you know, it's,
it's a formality, like the voters would still have to vote on it.
See, we
Yeah.
did,
it's not,
and the difference, we did this before with the accessory dwelling unit, when they changed that law. Well, when Nick was here, but with that, we still had options. So we could, for local control with the accessory dwelling units, they'd left room for the towns to be able to have some options. With
Right.
this, there's no option.
There
You know,
isn't.
they just flat out.
Yep.
There's no options.
but there's so many people that would never know this.
Right.
Until they get to the ballot box and they look at this and they're gonna question it,
Yeah.
which I think is great. I mean, let's get, you know, if nothing else, we're helping to educate the
We
public.
should attach their local representatives' phone numbers to this and say,
If you
call
are not
these people because they're the ones that voted for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know.
But isn't it bringing to a vote just very misleading?
Pardon?
If you bring it to a vote, it's kind of misleading. So you're saying.
Unless they
public,
read
hey,
the
we're gonna take a vote
rationale.
on
I
this.
see,
Right.
yeah.
By the way. you know,
Right, so say,
Thank you for voting this down.
yeah, so for example,
Tough luck.
there was a petition warrant article on the ballot last year. And in that language, it stated that the selectmen weren't in favor of it just because the request was not a legal request. So that was within that language, people still had to vote on it, even though the selectmen said, no, this isn't legal. Town council said, what they are suggesting can't take place. So like that, people still voted on it. But so the sort of caveat was in there that was, if this is voted, for an approval, it's still not going to pass. So I kind of did the opposite language over here to just inform so the voters are informed.
Thanks.
I guess if you're gonna change the regulation, you gotta make them aware of that anyhow. right?
Yeah.
Yep, yep. Okay.
Amendment number 5. Article 400 zoning district regulations, adding a new section to the recreation service zone.
This is just like a little bit of house cleaning. There were some zones that didn't have the language that I've added on here, but they were in other zones. So I'm just putting it in the zones that it's missing.
Just making
That's
making it uniform from section to
Yep.
section.
Just make it in all caps.
And clear. So on. And so amendment 6.
Let's see, what is this?
It's really clarification, right? That 412 minimum required lot area, just clarifying what that minimum area, how that's calculated.
Yeah, so I did this myself and I hadn't had a chance to have John just take a look at sort of the calculations to make sure that I've captured and pulled it in properly.
This is another one in the other zones where it says you can only, excuse me, you're limited to one single family home on the lot. There's one exception to that, but that's in the rural zone. But there in 2 zones, we say that, in 3 zones, we haven't said it, although it's the norm and it's been the standard and it is part of it. So we're just making sure that we've
Cleaning
got the
it up.
same
Again.
language in each section.
Yep.
And a new question on section 433B, how many would be allowed on a lot? Perhaps input example calculations like in the rural and residential zones?
Yeah, because John had did a nice little calculation of in those two zones that I didn't know if how we'd go about
We didn't have that in the RC.
fixing that, you
Didn't have
know?
the calculation in the RC zone?
Nope,
Okay.
no. So, yeah, so the residential zone and residential commercial didn't have that sort of calculation for duplexes, two families, like multi-structures,
Okay.
multifamily, things like that. And I was gonna add another one, but I guess I didn't put it on here.
So on the highlighted section on your examples, gotta find where something just caught my attention. I gotta find it again. Number 2. All references are how many structures per the size of the lot. Number 2 is the size of the lot per structure. Follow what I'm saying? So to be consistent would be 1 structure per acre.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just an administrative flip.
Yeah, that's just a.
Yep.
And so as we go through, we've got all of the duplex townhouses, multifamily structures allowed per lot, and you're talking about doing the calculations, and all of that's going to be readdressed probably next year as we get into this
Flexible.
Yeah, the trying to get a little denser.
Right.
You could do it all over again.
Well, not necessarily, because so this is if I understand it correctly, so this is the criteria your sort of regular structures. And then we have the provisions like the elderly housing, inclusionary zoning that have different criteria. They have their own different criteria.
Yeah.
I'm gonna point to that. I'm sorry, it's too late. It's late in the week, it's late in the night. I'll get the next meeting. I'll do a little more research on that. I'm sorry.
That's all
So
right.
you're
I mean,
suggesting we
Yeah.
table this until,
Well, not necessarily.
no, I just pointing out that, I
I'll
mean, a
find
lot
some
of this is
language on
already
that.
established. This is already established. And I was just kind of making the observation that when we get into these alternatives here, that there's going to be all sorts of different
more
rules and
discussion.
regs
Yeah,
and,
right.
I mean, that's going to be a deep dive. That's why I think I think we got to get the ZAC committee started up immediately after
If
elections.
we're
And
gonna do flexible, yes.
yes, well, but I'm good with the clarifications, and yes, I think if we can somehow get the sample calculations, I think that would be even better.
Yep, and then there was one other amendment I was gonna add on here. And it actually has to do with the issue from last night's planning board meeting, no, night before, about the need for a variance when you're doing a lot line adjustment. If it doesn't conform to the current minimum lot size, frontage, whatever the requirements are.
Yeah, existing
It's sort of-
non-conforming
Right.
due to size.
Yep, and I did find the language, it just didn't get on my list.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'll make sure that that's on for
So-
the next
And
meeting.
it's, and essentially,
Yeah.
the import of the language is that if you're, may want to consider not, in this case, we have a lot that's a non-conforming lot in the rural zone presently, and they're making it slightly larger, but it's still going to be non-conforming.
Non-conforming, yeah.
So the question is, and it came to us from the applicant that's involved with this, who is the building inspector in Barnstead and the zoning officer in Barnstead. And he said in Barnstead, they have a provision that if you're making the lot more conforming,
Yeah.
then you wouldn't have to jump all the variance, those hoops, because you're doing the best you can, but you're making it more conforming. And so in that case, they don't require it to go to the zoning board for variance for frontage area, whatever, that it doesn't meet. And that's something that we wanted to, we thought that might not be a bad idea.
It's not. My only concern is that an opinion of, the idea of making something less non-conforming, I agree.
It's always possible.
I'm 100% behind it. Improving the condition is an opinion. And that's where I think the ZBA has the ability to step in and decide, yes, you are improving the condition, because they may be making the lot, and I'm taking it not specific to the case that we heard Tuesday, but let's just say that they had to reduce their road frontage by 10 feet, but the overall lot size was getting closer to the minimum. Is that an improvement?
Yeah.
I don't know,
Maybe-
It was the right call, I think.
Yeah.
Would it maybe be, better as a special exception instead of requiring the variances? That's just a thought. That way that, I don't know.
Less hoops of fire to jump through.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Right.
it's less.
Yeah.
Because, it's, do you have proper area for this, and this? Well, in most cases, you already have that.
Yeah.
You're just gaining space. In this case, they're gaining space to be able to build a garage and have more distance to property line for the house.
Yeah, I'd go with that.
Yeah, so
I was just trying to figure out where in the zoning ordinance would that go? Would it be a whole separate section? And then in each zone, you'd make reference to C section.
that
there's
might
whatever
be the
number.
easiest way to do it.
Well, isn't there a whole section on non-conforming lots?
It's very brief.
So maybe it could be
There are a
tagged
lot
on
of-
in there.
Yeah, that might be a spot to put
Right.
it. Yeah, that might be good, because it says that you can use non-conforming lots as long as you can meet the,
Yeah.
and this might be a spot for that. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have
Drew.
big non-conforming section. Huge non-conforming section. Spend all our time in non-conforming. Mark can tell you, he's seen a few of them so far, but not the section 320, the non-conforming section is a pretty popular one.
Yeah. When we making changes on the solar,
No, that was just the
Another one that was.
prior, that had to do with
Okay.
the special exceptions in the Lakeshore residential.
all right.
Okay, so I'll work on that for the non-conforming ordinance section 320 for that additional one.
Next meeting is.
It's October
Uh,
4th,
yeah.
right?
Tuesday, October
Do you not
4th,
hear that one?
6 PM.
Well, and here's the thing, it's October 4th. I'm leaving the next day. We're flying out the next, but
That's
we were
right.
gonna go down and spend the night in Manchester, but I could be here for the meeting, because I don't anticipate it'd be, real long, and then we just go to Manchester there and fly out in the morning.
Okay, that would be helpful,
But I won't be here for the zoning. board.
considering you're stranding me for the ZBA.
Yeah, I'm leaving her, leaving Jess Stranda with ZBA for that. I think I probably, in the whole time that I've been doing this, I think I may have missed maybe 2 meetings.
Really?
Yeah,
I think so.
Impressive.
Yeah,
over
I know at least 2 that I've had to attend.
10 years.
Yeah.
So,
Nice
yeah,
job.
no, Ken McWilliams did one for me. Matter of fact,
Okay.
that's how I ended up doing the staff reviews. The staff reviews that I do, they weren't in place when I started here. And one time I had to go away and the planner took over for me. And he did staff reviews for the zoning board. So when I came back, I was stuck with doing them because they loved them. So,
Well, you missed 2, so we can't give you 5 stars.
yeah.
So, good evening. So public input time. You want to come up? You got anything to share or?
Thank you.
I hope you found it somewhat entertaining as well.
No input.
So, well, having no input, any further discussion? Hearing none. And we set a date already, so we're October 4, 6 p.m. So I'll make a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
On my head vigorously.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Ian.